going to introduce Angie Whitcomb from the Minneapolis Regional Chamber of Commerce for a few minutes first. Angie, please, welcome.
Okay, after all that, I feel immense pressure to deliver after getting this all. And now look at perfect. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Angie Whitcomb. I'm the Executive Vice President of the Minneapolis Regional Chamber, and I want to welcome you all here today. And big thanks to Under Pressure Brewing for hosting us. And I hope you're all enjoying a beverage. It was a big discussion before everybody got here and sat down, like, do we serve beer? Do we not serve beer? And we decided yes. But depending on how ruckus this crowd gets, we might do last call in the middle of the speech. So anyway, I want to thank you all for being here. Thanks, Tim, for inviting me back again. We were talking that I got to welcome you all last year, and I was about 6 minutes into my role at the Minneapolis Regional Chamber, and I'm pretty sure I blacked out somewhere in my remarks, but I feel a little more prepared today. So it was an honor to be asked back. Last year, I welcomed you all and told you about our plans for the West Metro footprint of the Minneapolis Regional Chamber post-merger. And I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes today giving you an update on what we delivered on. I'm here with my colleague, Brent Pavia. And Brent and I have been working hard this last year to take what was working really well with the Twin West Chamber of Commerce and incorporate that with the offerings in the Minneapolis Regional Chamber of Commerce without doing 387 events in a year, driving you all crazy with our emails. So we spent the last year paring those down and making sure that we are hitting the important things. We've been working on our legislative series as well as our business advisory councils. We host those. We just started new ones in the Brooklands. And we do obviously hold one here in Gold Valley as well as in St. Louis Park. And we've just started, Brent started in January, our monthly membership luncheons. We brought those back. So make sure that you watch your emails for that and join us. We bring in the speaker every month and we gather just to do the work of the chamber. And that is convening to get business done and to talk about the issues that are important to business. So with that, I really encourage you all to come and join us. I wanted to highlight a little bit about the work that the foundation is doing, simply because that work started here in the Twin West footprint. And we are focused at the foundation on bringing the business community together with the education community to try to address this talent gap in this workforce shortage that we're all experiencing. And, you know, the pandemic made it that much louder, that much more painful because it was layered on with everything else. But it was going on well before the pandemic hit. And it certainly didn't sneak up on us. And what we're realizing is that none of us are really good at change, right? So the business community, we've been posting the same job descriptions with the same list of job requirements that we've always done. And we're expecting different results. And I'm pretty sure that's the definition of insanity, right? So, and the education system, no offense to the teachers or the system, we're slow to change too. So we're ruling out people with just by doing the same thing we've always done. But so at the Chamber Foundation, we're really focused on bringing together the requirements and the skills and the job seekers, whether they're students or they're switching careers and part of this great transition we're in, bringing them together with the business community and flipping that whole process on its head and talking about the skills required and the responsibilities of the job. And what we're finding is that when we can introduce a student to career exploration, that they didn't even know there was that option, and that the pathway to that job doesn't require hundreds of thousands of dollars and a 4-year degree, that they can like start now in high school and get hands-on experience and then have a great job. When we introduce that awareness, and then we introduce a company to a previously untapped talent resource, that's where the magic happens. And we're doing it every day. We need to do it a lot more, and we need the engagement of the business community to continue to make that magic happen. But that's what's happening at the chamber. So when you're sitting at the dinner table or in your offices during the day, scratching your head saying, you know, I really do wonder what the heck they do at the chamber, that's just a small piece of the work that we're continuing to do. And it really is magic, and we're happy to be able to continue to do that. And we're doing that through our Elevate Futures platform, which again was lucky inheritance from our merger with the Twin West. So we're very grateful for that. I could stand up here all day and talk to you about all the fun things that we do at the chamber. I just would like to end with, I would like to encourage you all to follow us on our social media, follow us on our website, and join us. You don't have to be a member to come to one of our events and to talk about the business issues. We are focused on making sure that first and foremost, we're listening to the voice of the member, and we're taking that where we need to, whether that's the city level and we're bugging the mayor about something, or we're taking it to the county and bugging them about something that's important to business and the state. I mean, so wherever we need to be to carry your voice so that you have the time and the freedom to run your business, that's where we're spending our time. So I look forward to meeting you all at a different place. I know we've got a packed agenda today, and I'm super excited about all of you that took the time to show up. That's really what it's about being involved and being engaged where you need to be. So I applaud all of you, and I'm sure that, 3:00 on a Friday afternoon at a brewery, it's like, oh, I have to go to a meeting. I applaud you all for making the sacrifice today, so thank you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the person you're really here to hear from, and that is Mayor Shep Harris. Mayor Harris.
Oh. Okay. More technical difficulties. Let's see if I can get this working right. There we go. Can folks hear me all right back there? Great. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Shep Harris, Golden Valley Mayor. Welcome to the 2022 Golden Valley State of the City Address. So glad that you guys could be here this afternoon. For what you're going to hear is some very fascinating, impressive, and exciting news. But first, a couple of just shout outs and welcomes. For starters, definitely never last, definitely never least. We've got a whole cadre. I'm not going to name them because I'm going to somehow, being nervous up here, I'm going to screw up somebody's name. But we've got a whole group of fantastic staff here and in the back and in the back over there. And so definitely, I think you're going to be hearing from some of them in the next few minutes. But I also wanted to point out we've got Senator Ann Rest, who is here with us today. Give her a hand, folks. Because she has always been an advocate for Golden Valley. And I know she is very excited. Now, we were talking about this the other day on a Zoom call. It's great to see you in person, by the way. But on a Zoom call about how excited that now the new Senate district that Senator Rest is going to represent includes all of Golden Valley, not just half of Golden Valley. So, yay. So, yes. She's been a fantastic champion for us. In fact, we've been doing a lot of work with her session after session after legislative session. And as usual, we're doing more work this year. So thank you so much for that partnership. I'm not the only one who welcomes you here. We've got all of our city council members here. I see Councilmember Maurice Harris in the back, Councilmember Denise Lemaire Anderson. Wave, Denise. She's our newbie on the council, but comes with a lot of experience. Jillian Rosenquist. There's Kimberly Sandberg waving back there as well. We all are so thrilled to be back in person, right? Because last year this was virtual, as Angie was just saying a few minutes ago. And the year before that, I guess we're getting into a little bit of a bad habit because before we were at New Bohemia and now we're here. So there's a little bit of a pattern going on there. But the reason why we wanted to be here and the reason why I was delayed in getting this sheet here, I was delayed because I had to run back and get the sheet. We want to support our businesses. Thank you so much to Under Pressure Brewery for being here, not just for us at this moment, but for our community and frankly, surviving COVID. We know it was a very difficult time, has been difficult. Folks, can you please give them a hand? We know this has not been easy. Lori and I have had plenty of phone conversations and text messages over the past couple of years about how difficult it has been on businesses. We're so thrilled that you are still here. And just as an example, just because of that, we want to support you. And that's why we chose specifically to be here today. And please don't just come this time. They have great selection of beers. If you don't like the drink, that's fine. Instead of taking your money, they'll take your blood. I know that sounds a little odd, but I'm holding up a sheet right here. They have a blood drive coming up next Wednesday, March 9th, from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. They do them every month. So if you're not into beer, first of all, they've got great root beer. You guys still have a root beer, right? Yes, they're great root beer. So you can bring your kids. If you don't like root beer, they're doing blood drives. So just by coming in here, not only are you supporting a local business, but you're helping others in need. So I'm gonna put this back over by Angie when I'm done. I also just appreciate so much that we've got, let's see, I'm just looking here. I also want to point out that we've got other partners here in the room as well. And when I mean partners, it's not just a snapshot in time, but ongoing partners. Jim Ehrlich, for example, is here from the Golden Valley Historical Society. And I apologize if I'm missing somebody. Who else might be here from the Historical Society or other organizations? But for example, I see Michelle Ness in the back as president of the Golden Valley Rotary, who's also the executive director of PRISM. We also have, I see we've got former council members here as well. I see Andy Snope, I see Dee Dee Scanlon, Paula Pentel, who are here with us, continuing to support the community. So we're so thrilled to have all of you here. I'm just looking at my notes and I'm trying to do this without using my cheaters. Obviously, based on some recent media, it may not appear we're in a good place. We've had a little bit of a bumpy few days. But what I would say is the city still has a solid foundation. It has a solid foundation to get us through any rocky times. There are many here today who can point to successful interactions and partnerships with the city as evidence of that solid foundation. A lot of that credit goes to our staff for their tireless work to keep the city going, even during COVID. So I just ask you again to give them a round of applause for what they've been able to do. I'm very excited about the work, and I know the council shares this with me as well. We're very excited. We've just completed our annual goal setting session last month, and we are very excited about the work ahead this year. You'll see in a few moments the work we are doing and have planned is going to make our city even better, even more successful. The key to this success, though, is a partnership with all of you. We need your feedback. We need your partnership as we are tackling challenging issues. And the only way to get through it, honestly, is together. Come to those, and what I would say is one example of that, and I can't remember if Angie mentioned it or Brent for sure. Thank you to the two of you because you guys have helped partner with the Golden Valley Rotary to do month after month after month of business meetings, business council meetings that Councilmember Harris is the liaison to for our city council. So we always constantly, if Councilmember Harris isn't there, sometimes we have staff that are there, sometimes I show up, and we're always giving a briefing and an update about some of the topics, the projects that we're working on in the city, and most importantly, we need your feedback. So that's a great opportunity. I'm looking at Brent and Maurice, it's the 4th Thursday of the month. Obviously, there's some holidays during the fall and winter that get in the way, but 4th Thursday of the month, 8:30 a.m. You can be in person or you can be online. Just like some folks are watching us right now, you can be online. It's over at Brookview Community Center at 8:30 a.m. And that's where we really need your feedback on these projects. You're going to hear about some of them today, and they're in development. And we're going to need your feedback and your thoughts on it as we develop it further. So without any further ado, please help me welcome our city manager, Tim Cruikshank, who's going to kick things off and then turn it over to other staff. Give me a hand.
Yeah, I'll figure it out. Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna break it. All right, so other staff that need to adjust this, it is adjustable. As the mayor mentioned, my name is Tim Cruikshank. I'm the city manager. I'm very happy to be here today. I also want to give a special thanks to Lori and company for being our gracious host. This was an event that, as the mayor pointed out, we lost a year on because of COVID. We intended to be here a year ago, and so we appreciate, Lori, your patience, and we're delighted to be here. So thank you for that. And I extend the thanks that the mayor did to all the other folks that were mentioned, especially including our staff. So typically what happens is what you've just seen, and then I would come up and speak for quite a while on the content of what we've had going on. We're going to do something different this year, and I'm delighted and excited to do so. We're going to share those presentation duties with many other staff, our wonderful staff, our subject matter experts. And so there's going to be a series of handoffs here. So hang with us as we all continue to come up and down and adjust the microphone. We have a lot of material to cover, staff, so we'll do our best to move through it in thorough but efficient way, so we're not here all evening. So what I'd like to do, though, before we get into that, is talk about our governing tenets. We have folks ask us on occasion, maybe folks regularly wonder, how are decisions made? What are some of your parameters? What guides you as staff? What guides you, council members, as you make decisions? And there are parameters, there are guideposts, there are guardrails that we collectively have put in place. And one of those is our welcome statement. And I'm not going to read through this, but I'm going to leave it up for just a little bit. This is one of the foundations of what directs and guides us as we make decisions and as we move through each day, each week, each month, and each year. And really emphasize and want to not just say the words, but live this out in life. We also have created values on why and how we work. And again, these are words on a piece of paper, and we show these guide markers as much as possible, so we don't lose sight of what it is we're trying to do and how we want to do our work. And so we talk about these and we present these 8 markers on how we want to do our work. And we try hard to stick with those, and we'll continue to strive to do so. The city council and with our boards and commissions have created a vision statement and a mission statement. Again, I'm not going to read the words, but I'll leave it up here for you. And these statements also help guide us in everything that we do. And again, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of them and has a basis for understanding the direction that we're going. So a few more things, and then I'm going to start handing the baton off here. We have 5 pillars, our organizational priorities, that also help guide what we do. Several years back, the council created these pillars, and we try to group our work under them. And again, I'm not going to read them. You can see what they are here. But this helps funnel down where we focus, what our actions are, in the direction that we're going. And each year, the council has an annual goal session, and these, again, are placed as a way to help the council come up with action steps and goals. And we're going to get into those, and that's a part of the presentation that you'll hear from staff. So, having said that, we're going to move into the first pillar, that being strategic development and redevelopment. And the outcome of our annual goal session this year with the city council, the top priority in this pillar was prioritize affordable housing initiatives. We have other initiatives and projects as well that are listed there, and we'll have a couple of speakers address these. But on the first pillar, the top priority, prioritize affordable housing initiatives, I'd like to bring up Sherry Showquist. Sherry is our Housing and Economic Development Manager. She's been with us for about 1 year. Welcome. And we're delighted to have you. Sherry has done a marvelous job for us. We're fortunate to have her. And I'm going to turn the mic over to her to talk more about housing and economic development matters. Please welcome Sherry.
Thank you, Mayor, Manager Cruikshank, and thank you everyone for showing up today. I am going to talk about our priority for affordable housing in the city of Golden Valley. We are focusing on understanding what our true housing needs are, our mixed income housing needs, and identifying the solutions that we can bring to the city to help meet those needs. The 3 main strategies that we have are to preserve our existing affordable housing. We have many naturally occurring affordable units in our city, and they are a great asset to us. We hope to continue to work with those property owners and managers to keep that affordable housing in the city. However, we are also planning in the event that there would be an acquisition by many of the market forces, many investors are looking for affordable housing investment. It is the biggest investment sector other than light industrial in the country right now. It's a great investment. And because of that, we want to have and continue to build strong relationships with the property owners that own naturally occurring affordable housing in our city, and also have a plan that in the event one of these properties sold, we would work with one of the nonprofit organizations to bring funding to the table to try to maintain affordability in those projects. Very important goal for preserving existing affordable housing. The second goal is to develop new mixed income housing. We have been meeting with so many developers regarding the implementation of our mixed income housing policy and looking to identify potential development sites. My colleague Jason will be talking about study of prime area for increased development in the city. Once again, we are a very, very popular suburb. We do not have a lot of land available, but with rent control in Minneapolis and St. Paul, I have certainly had the opportunity to renew relationships with many developers across the metro area because they all want to be in Golden Valley. We also think it's incredibly important to increase home ownership opportunity, supporting first generation home buyers. And to do that, we plan to continue to build our relationships with developers, funders, and lenders. We're considering an RFP, a request for proposals, for some single family development on city-owned property. And we would market that to provide a more affordable and more range of housing home ownership opportunities in the city. Just to recap, our multi-family rental housing strategies encourage NOAA and maintaining our subsidized affordable housing that exists in the city, including welcoming Section 8 housing choice voucher users. Our single family rental housing strategies include maintaining our existing affordable single family housing that's available for rental and advancing our alternative dwelling unit policy. So current homeowners have the opportunity to maybe provide a home for a family member or a student or a senior in the community. Very important to our multifamily rental housing strategies that I already talked about, a very high priority for us in the city. A little deeper dive into how we would increase home ownership opportunities. As you may be aware, Minnesota has among the worst racial disparity gaps in home ownership in the nation. Because of that, we have reached out to several nonprofit organizations, Homes Within Reach, which is a community land trust, Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity, and many others to look at ways to provide down payment assistance for existing home buyers that are looking at purchasing existing homes, maybe making some of those vacant lots available, and then also working to, in partnership with Hennepin County and the state of Minnesota, to make rehabilitation loans available. We need all of the strategies available to be able to provide mixed income housing and address the need for affordable housing. We are considering the HRA levy, creating a local affordable housing trust fund, and using the financing tools that we already have, tax increment financing, tax abatement, housing bonds, looking maybe for a land write down on some of that publicly owned property, and continuing our partnership with the philanthropic organizations, the county, Met Council, and the state. And that is a brief overview of our affordable housing priorities in the city. Thank you.
So we'll move into the other initiatives under this pillar, and the first one we're going to talk about is our downtown study, and we're going to have our planning manager, Jason Zimmerman, make that presentation. So Jason, if you would come up, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, sir. We had two major studies, and as Tim mentioned, the study was the first one. This was really the culmination of about 4 years of work, and it was wrapped up into our comprehensive plan, which was approved a few years ago. When I say downtown, we're really looking at that intersection of Golden Valley Road and Winnetka Avenue and those blocks that surround it. We really wanted to explore what does it mean to kind of focus some activity there, potentially revitalize some of those blocks. The council did receive that final report last November, and so that kind of vision and that plan for that area is now recorded, and we're actually starting to see some interest already. This is just one example of a quadrant. This is where the Golden Valley Shopping Center, the Wells Fargo, and the kind of vacant Park Nicollet building is. We've already seen a lot of interest and may see some redevelopment happen on that Wells Fargo Park Nicollet site within the next year. Part of the overall plan does call for adding more residential units in our downtown, some new commercial uses. Definitely a big focus was creating some more bike and pedestrian connections, especially with the loose line, allowing people to move off the loose line to our downtown and back and forth, maybe over Highway 55 and move on to Brookview. So we have a lot of great ideas. The zoning has been updated to kind of reflect that, and now we're ready for developers to come forward and start making proposals. This plan really then led directly into our municipal facilities study, which is one of those, our city campus is one of those 4 blocks right around that intersection. So I'm gonna take a pause, turn it over to Mark Novinsky to talk about facility study, and I'll come back to talk about a few of the other projects in the area.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Novinsky. I'm the Physical Development Director for the city. As Jason mentioned, one of the other studies that we undertook basically last year was our municipal facility study. The goal behind that was to really try to determine a long-term approach for the future of our municipal facilities. The study built on a lot of the additional or added work that was done years in the past. Maybe most significantly, the recent fire rescue report that was done in 2016 that identified a lot of needs in terms of our fire service. I'll get into that in a minute. But it also built on our comprehensive plan, the downtown study, and some early work that was done in 2007. We had a number of goals for this study, developing a long-term plan, not necessarily trying to take this on all at once, and also balancing the implementation with the city's debt management goals, 2 very important pieces. We also needed to address some of the critical deficiencies and accommodate the evolution that we know our city will see in years ahead. One of the big issues is transitioning our fire department from a 3-station paid-on-call model to a 2-station duty crew. I can get into more of that in a bit, or maybe with you afterwards, but a critical outcome of this study, figuring out how to do it. Providing support and training for our police department so that we can do more community outreach and have a well-prepared, well-trained police force. And also moving our public works facility out of the downtown area and consolidating it into one building. We have a very walkable downtown. One of the things that actually drew me to Golden Valley was the fact that we've got so much walkability, and yet we have seniors competing with dump trucks and front-end loaders. Not a great combination. So we see opportunities there. As I mentioned, trying to from the downtown study. Another objective is to really explore some of the co-location opportunities that exist. We believe that trying to keep our fire department and our police department together in one building makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of overlap between those 2 functions. We have some opportunities perhaps with Hennepin County and the library to, in some ways, maybe partner. We've got to figure out those details yet. We also wanted to be very transparent and open with the community. We spent a lot of time going through this study, talking about the gory details of facilities and where things might go. We spent a lot of time trying to do community engagement as well. That's very very core tenet of this process. As you can see, these are kind of the 5 steps that we really went through: data collection, analyzing our buildings, and understanding what was happening in there, doing the space programming, and trying to figure out what are our needs going to be. Interestingly enough, I mean, City Hall, we don't need that much more space at City Hall in the long term. We do need a building that works efficiently, and we don't currently have that right now. So that was sort of one of the things that we learned through the process. And as I mentioned, community engagement, stakeholder engagement. We had planned for 2 events and focused on community engagement. We had a citizen task force that was advising us every month, through the process, giving us insight, and they actually pushed back on us quite a bit at one point and said, you need to do more. You need to explain this problem further. So we added a 3rd event. So critical needs. What did we ultimately learn kind of going through this process? As I mentioned, we need to transition from a 3-station to a 2-station model with a duty crew. The paid on call model that has been, common for decades and decades is not sustainable. It's not just a problem here, it's a problem across the country. And many of our neighboring communities have moved to duty crew or even full-time professional departments. So we don't have the facilities at this time to really support robust duty crews. We are going to be doing some of that in the very near future, but we need new facilities for that. Our police department, we need to make some significant improvements in a facility for our police department. We need to be able to have facilities that allow us to recruit and retain police officers. We need better operational space, more efficient space, and we need, quite honestly, space to do more training. If you came to City Hall or to the police department now and went down to the locker rooms, the lockers do not accommodate our police force well and all the equipment that they have. And if you went over to the female locker rooms, you'd be even more appalled because they are about half the size. And yet, I think about half of our goal is to have half of our officers be female. So we need to equalize that. Part of the problem that we have is A, we're out of space, just land, and B, the structure of the buildings don't really allow a lot more addition and reconstruction. So we're faced with needing to look at new facilities. I should add too that with our police department, we need more space for people who come in. We need to talk with an officer in a private, kind of confidential space. We have one little interview room off the lobby right now, so we need to fix that. We also actually have to bring sometimes maybe people that are suspects or in custody in some ways back into office space, which is not secure and it's not a good situation. So we have some serious things to reconcile there. Public Works, as you may know, we've got 4 different Public Works buildings. They all have lunchrooms, they all have offices. We don't necessarily have a lot of gender equity in terms of locker rooms. So again, that's an issue that we need to fix and as I mentioned, move to a more appropriate location. And in City Hall, the building's been through a long cycle. I think at one point the library was in there. I understand for one of our employees who's been here a long time that Public Works actually was in the basement of City Hall, where we currently have offices now. So the times have definitely changed, but we need a building that is much more customer focused, that is much more transparent, much more easier for people to navigate, and frankly, just use the space more efficiently. I think the City Hall, although it has some needs, that's maybe part of our longer term objectives. Some of the other buildings that I talked about, particularly fire and police, are critical right now. So next steps, we need to do some site selection. We need to go through a process to identify locations for new stations, identify stations for Public Works. We want to be objective. We want to engage with people. We want to be transparent about that. But there will be some impacts in the community, and I think a lot of discussion. How are we going to pay for this? This is always, the big question, I think, in everyone's mind, and certainly in ours. Debt and levy impacts are most likely going to be part of the equation. But we are also working to see if we can identify some bonding working right now. Actually, Senator Rest has been talking with us quite a bit about bonding. We're looking at local option sales tax. We get about 30,000 jobs every day that come into Golden Valley. And so can we capitalize on that? And people that take advantage of our services on a daily basis help to fund some of those facility needs. And maybe even some congressionally directed funding, which is a fancy word for earmarks. But we've had some conversations with both Senator Klobuchar's office and Senator Smith's office, and so we're looking at that. So that is what we're thinking. Just some images now in the next few slides, kind of our recommended scenarios, basically variations on the theme. As you might see, the more colorful buildings, particularly in the middle, the red and blue, that would be a public safety building. We would show a couple different potential orientations there. They would basically go where the streets and parks department are located right now. To the north, we've got a couple scenarios. One, we could do some housing to the north where our utilities building is, or potentially put City Hall back in that corner, kind of get City Hall off the prime commercial corner and open that up for some development. If you look to the south or the bottom of those two long images, that shows some private development, maybe some mixed use or residential uses. The goal there being trying to support the downtown and support this area with more rooftops and more activity. Again, prime commercial corner, prime commercial location, and maybe there's some better land uses that can happen if government facilities are located not quite on those corners. I will say though, I think it's a priority to keep our civic uses in the downtown. That's part of supporting our downtown and supporting activity in the area. So I think that's one of our key goals. Fire stations, we don't have a site selected yet, but just sort of some scenarios with some different square footages. And similarly for public works, this is maybe the ideal public works layout with some yard space and some cold storage and then a major building. So just to give us all some ideas of what we think our space needs would be in layouts. Overall timing and phasing. So we have a lot of moving pieces, a lot of big nuts, as I keep saying in all of our meetings on this. But as we worked through our study, we identified really as a reference point, not as anything that's cast in stone, but really as a reference point to help us think and plan sort of the process that we might go through. What buildings would we try to deal with first, in what order? As you can see here in the top on the left-hand side, the remote fire station is priority number one. So we need to get that constructed. We show here some potentially small renovations to City Hall or to the police department. A lot of that's going to depend on what our longer term time horizon is, but we do have some things that we need to do quickly and soon. Then we get out about another 10 years and we'd be looking at doing public works, preparing the sites in the downtown area, and then another 10 years after that, looking at public safety, and then a really long time after that, probably City Hall somewhere. This gave us some scenarios for doing cost estimates and planning and just trying to really think through what makes sense. I will tell you, if money falls from the sky and a site opens up, we're going to jump on that and take advantage of those opportunities and get these facilities built. But we have to balance that with the financial costs and the impact to the city and to our taxpayers. So we're very, very attuned to that. Finally, this is just sort of a scenario. You probably can't see those numbers, but we're looking at about 160 million over 30 years. It's a big, big number. We know that, we're aware of it, and we're trying to drive that cost down. These numbers do reflect too sort of the time value of money over time. Costs go up. Think about that car that you bought 10 years ago versus now, with the price differences there. Same issue with building costs. So Kraus Anderson, who was part of the team, developed some cost projections and helped us to understand that. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Jason Zimmerman for some other development updates that are happening.
Thanks, Mark. As you might have development scenarios kind of slowed down, but as we have come out of kind of our pandemic lockdown, we've seen a lot more activity. And so, one major project that we saw completed last year, and then touch on some new projects that are coming online and you'll see happening out in the community over the next 2, 3, 4 years. So completed projects, for a while you saw this building going up in the West End, 10 West End, 11-story office building parking ramp. There's a joint project with St. Louis Park. Actually, the office building sits mostly in St. Louis Park. There is a parking ramp that goes with it, which is in Golden Valley. The two cities work very closely together. More than 340,000 square feet of Class A office space. And my understanding is, even though the grand opening, was officially maybe in September or something, they're quite well on their way to being leased out. And there's a second phase just south of there, maybe a mirror building, 20 West End, likely to be proposed in the next year or two. So that's been a very successful project. And as you drive by, this is the view you see from the street. We had a number of residential projects approved over the last maybe 6 months. The Country Club has been involved in getting rid of some of their excess land, and in the northwest corner, Greenway Villas was proposed and has gotten approved. That will be a kind of a quarter of the golf course, which will now have 7 single-family homes, villas, and they will overlook Bassett Creek and look out to the kind of south and east over the golf course. In the opposite corner, on the south end of the driving range, currently, the Artesa Senior Co-op has been approved. So that would be 78 senior cooperative units, a number of amenities, and that will include 9 affordable units preserved because of our mixed income policy, as Sherry mentioned earlier. A third one, which if you remember, when Tennant Company moved their headquarters off of Douglas Drive to Eden Prairie, their Corporate Woods office headquarters sat vacant for a year or two. We have a proposal, the permits are being issued, and quite soon you'll probably see the demolition of that building. And this, the 2-building apartment complex, about 207 units, a little over 100 in each one, north and south, will be going up there. We've really tried to emphasize, based on our Douglas Drive study from a few years ago and our comprehensive plan, really strengthening that street feel, so the more urban feel along Douglas Drive. The buildings will be pulled forward, parking and other kind of amenity space off to the west, and preserving a number of those trees. So that will be happening in the near future. Moving away from residential to the commercial side, Golden Valley Business Center has been approved. The Optum site right at the corner of Douglas and Highway 55 has been vacant for a number of years. It's been a challenging site to redevelop, just based on the size of the building, the complexities there. But United Properties has come forward with a proposal, and we'll be developing 2 new buildings there. They'll be demolishing that existing structure and making way for 2 buildings, which will have office, showroom, research and development, laboratory space. We've been hearing about possibility for medical device businesses to move in, and so you'll be seeing that quite soon as well. To smaller scale, but just up the road, Spire Credit Union will be moving in to the vacant restaurant site down on 394 next to JJ's. Across the street, as you exit the parking lots, take a look across Boone, and you'll see the site of our new Blue Pearl Animal Hospital. We'll be relocating from down off of Olson Memorial near Shopper Park. Expanded emergency veterinary service, specialty surgery is under construction currently, and then just go a little bit further north on Boone and 10th. Academy of Whole Learning is moving in and rehabbing that building and doing some expansion. It's a school for children on the autism spectrum. We're adding a gymnasium, preserving a number of those mature oak trees that are there, but providing some outdoor play space, and that will be up and running in the next year or two. Before I turn it over, I'll just mention we will continue as staff to do our best to keep you all informed of what's going on. And we're about to unveil with our communication staff a new website, which can track via mapping and other information, current proposals, progress on current projects. And so that'll be coming out. You can always call staff or email staff. Hopefully you can go there and get up-to-date information about meetings, what's being discussed, what was voted on, and be kept in the loop. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our city manager.
Thank you very much, Mark and Jason. Tons of work going on there, and much appreciation to both of you. That was the first pillar. We've got 4 to go, but don't fret. That was the longest one. So hang with us here. All right. So our next pillar is effective governance. And under the heading of effective governance, the top priority for the council this year was to continue doing our internal and external equity work. There are other initiatives and projects that are also worked on under this pillar that we're not going to spend a ton of time on, but I want to mention them to you. We're talking about the creation of a public facilities naming policy. We're going to continue to try to work with the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board on a joint powers agreement. We're going to continue making communications improvements in all ways possible, including these types of meetings and other things that we're doing, because we know that communication is one of the foundations of what we do. So you all know what we've got going on and how we're doing it and getting feedback and input from you. But let's go back to the top priority, and we're going to I'm going to bring up Kiara Zachary, our Equity and Inclusion Manager, and she's going to talk about all of the wonderful work we're doing around the topic of equity. So Kiara, please welcome Kiara. Thank you.
I was guessing at my seat whether or not the mic would be taller than me, so I was prepared for it. So I'm Kiara Zachary, and I'm the city's equity and inclusion manager. And I'm here to talk about all of our internal, meaning the work that we're doing to create a workplace for our staff that is inclusive, equitable, and supports the diversity of all of our folks. And then external, meaning the ways in which we want to effectively and intentionally provide services, resources, and opportunities to all of our community members. So on an internal focus, that work looks like creating and developing the city's equity action plan. We do that annually, and it's a part of the council goal session, in which all of our department heads come together and brainstorm ways in which that they want to create an infrastructure or create actions around equity within each of their departments related to all of their specific skills. So for example, I'll use Mark's department because he's right here and I can think of his goal right off the top of my head. But it's around procurement and how do we provide intentional opportunities to conduct business for a number of different vendors that we would have to contract with in physical development. So all departments come up with this. It's a collaborative process. And the work of my work throughout the year is helping to support those goals for each of the departments. Secondly, the city now has an equity advancement team, which is a group of volunteer employees that think of ways and initiatives to create more inclusive spaces and a more inclusive workplace. We've done things so far like thinking of an inclusive employee calendar. So how are we celebrate holidays outside of our normal holiday calendar? How do we support time off for families? Thinking of ways to be more intentional about how we expect folks to be able to use their time off and being representative and responsive to the needs of all of the folks that work in the city. Other things that they've done is hold lunches where we learn about different topics, everything from pronouns to the importance of names to just providing processing spaces for all of the things that are happening within our community. So that's a group of staff that get together to do those things monthly. The JEDI lunches, so Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion lunches are those lunches that I just mentioned, where there's a number of topics that we get together and we discuss our own learnings. It's an opportunity for folks to share their knowledge and to gain new understandings based on personal experiences. Organizational equity assessments. It's really hard to say that this work is impactful if we don't know where we are. And you know, the city's been doing this work for many years even before I started working, and I've been here for 18 months. But it's hard to plan a trajectory and understand the impact of something like a Jedi lunch or an equity advancement team if we aren't really aware and intentional about creating indicators for ourselves and how we want to be and feel more inclusive for our employees and all of our staff. So we're going to conduct organizational equity assessments over the year so that we can figure out what that is. And then lastly, we're thinking of a pay parity policy. We understand that there are wage gaps, but are prevalent not just within our city, but within all workplaces by not only our comp and class study that we did for supervisors in determining what's an appropriate pay for a certain person, not necessarily just saying this is what they made last time, so we're going to do it this, we're going to use it, we're going to pay them something different or maybe similar, but really setting some guidelines and policy work around that. So those are our internal things. I'm trying to go quick because I know like that person was rough, so that was long, so I'm trying to go quickly. Externally, we've just hired, he's been here for 30 days. His name is Arian Williams, our community connections and outreach specialist. And really this position is to help with all of that outward facing and external equity work. Again, when we say that, we're talking about how are we creating intentional opportunities and intentional access to all of the resources, opportunities, and services that the city provides. In order for us to do that effectively, we need to, of course, hear from community about how in which they experience barriers to certain. And so a lot of his work is going to be knowing and community that needs pulled in more. Our other, another initiative that we have is something that I hope you all are familiar with, and if not, please become familiar with our Building an Equitable Golden Valley quarterly forums. These were started by the Rising Tides Task Force, and I want to say in 2019, and they've happened every quarter since. There's a number of topics, everything from voting access to disability inclusion. Our next topic is a collaboration with the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Commission, which I'll mention in a second, and the Environmental Commission on environmental justice. And we've got speakers from local organizations that are going to be talking about ways in which we can support the environment and then also provide, again, really intentional and specific access to green amenities to communities that haven't historically had that access. Lastly, we've got, we've got the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission, a new commission that has become the evolution of the Human Rights Commission and the Rising Tides Task Force. So right now, the commission is created mostly of members between those two existing bodies. And they are working on a number of different projects, one of which is the drafting of a land acknowledgement and policy that speaks to acknowledging that we are on Indigenous land and how that relationship it impacts all of us of inhabiting this land that will belong to somebody else, to another group of people. Our meetings are in the old HRC time, so they're on the second, third, fourth. I'm not so many evening meetings. I don't know what anymore. I'm just here all the time. So we meet the fourth meeting, fourth Tuesday of the month at 6:30 p.m. And you can find us on WebEx. Please come. We absolutely adore having community presence and perspective during those meetings. I talked really briefly about the procurement and how we are intentionally creating opportunities to diversify our spend, meaning spend more money with more different vendors. So we've done some work around that. Again, intentional work with our physical development department that has lots of contracts. But we've also done things like having a lunch and learn, where we invited a number of custodial companies who had not historically had access to government contracts. We taught them about the RFP, or the request for proposal process. They were able to ask questions. We were able to use a small local vendor to cater. And it ended up such that we were able to contract with a local company, a local small Black-owned business to perform custodial services for our City Hall campus, all because we were able to create a relationship and provide an hour of some question answering and some really good chili. That was great chili. And lastly, Just Deeds. The Just Deeds Coalition, the City of Golden Valley is really proud to be a co-founder of the Just Deeds Coalition, which is a coalition of industry leaders, all related, and have chosen to take responsibility for the legacy and use of racially restricted covenants all over the state of Minnesota. Racially restricted covenants are contracts within property deeds that restricted the occupation and purchase of land and property to specifically only white people and white Christian folks for a really long time. And we worked together to determine ways in which we can mitigate that historic impact, because it's so prevalent today. Sherry spoke about the disparities of home ownership, and there's very direct correlations between racially restrictive covenants and the home ownership gap. And so the Just Deeds Coalition is a way for property owners to discharge those covenants and to acknowledge that history. And again, it's a way that we can problem solve. So we have city attorneys in this coalition. We have community groups, land trusts within our commission, the Planning Association, and other professional organizations like realtors that are coming together and saying, how do we make this right and better? So we have a website, justdeeds.org. Please go and visit, and you'll find tons of resources there that you'd find. The City of Golden Valley has 1,600, if you didn't know, there are over 1,600 racially restrictive covenants. 61 of those parcels are city-owned. We have discharged all of them, thanks to our city attorney. This is a map that shows where they all are, and those that have the bubbles are parks or open space that were, again, city-owned. So this map we can share with you, so you can see maybe if you know where your neighborhood is, and if you haven't already, you can look at on the DEI website, the DEI page for the Golden Valley website, and find Just Deeds. And if you would like to, you can fill out the application. We have a group of volunteer attorneys that can help community members discharge their covenants. That's it.
Big thanks. Whoop. What's this? Big thanks to Kiara for all of the very important work that you're doing. Thank you, Kiara. Okay, moving on to pillar 3, infrastructure maintenance and enhancement. And the top priority, okay, I lied. This pillar has quite a number of the top priority that came out of the council goal session this year was improved pedestrian and traffic safety on county roads and city arterials. There are other initiatives as well, and we'll move through those in sequence. But we're going to start off with improving pedestrian and traffic safety on county roads and city arterials, and we're going to invite up RJ Kokich, our assistant city engineer. Welcome, RJ. Please come on up.
Thanks, Tim. So as Tim mentioned here, some of the other initiatives. Okay, I just don't want to block. The first part of our pillar here is improved pedestrian safety, traffic safety on county roads and city arterials. So some of the initiatives we've taken in the past, and then some future initiatives here. We have the Highway 55 Douglas intersection bike and ped improvement project. We actually we're in the design process right now. We actually had an open house earlier this week. And there's still time for public comments. So if you have any comments on the project, we're soliciting feedback to kind of incorporate that into our final design as we move forward here. I'll get into some more details on these two as we go on. But pedestrian crosswalk improvements, so we have some of those scheduled for actually this summer on Winnetka south of 55. Our bike and ped plan, we installed, I believe, about 4 or 5 miles of bike lanes last year in Golden Valley, and then MnDOT trails and other planned trails. We'll get into some more of the details here. So again, the 55 Douglas pedestrian improvement project. You can see here on the left, we have the schematic that shows our, it's going to be a pedestrian underpass at Douglas and 55. It's that orange rectangle there. We're also shifting that intersection south of 55 in Douglas, a little bit further south, excuse me, so to improve traffic flow, installing a mini roundabout. So that'll help with some of the traffic safety issues we have there, both pedestrian and vehicle traffic. Soliciting feedback, as I mentioned, we're going to be bidding that project later this year, and then construction will take place in 2023. As I mentioned, Winnetka south of 55, we have a couple intersections that we've identified as, first of all, Winnetka south of 55 carries some of the most traffic for a city's own street that we have in Golden Valley. And we identified 2 intersections here next to Brookview Park that could, one of which actually already has some pedestrian safety improvements at Western, and the other one at Harold Avenue. So we have a project that we're working on this summer that we're going to be upgrading the system at Western to meet current standards, and then installing a new system at Harold Avenue just to facilitate crossing of Winnetka Avenue. Bike lanes were installed in 2021. As you can see here, we have 11 routes, one being just outside of Under Pressure here, where we installed bike lanes last summer. MnDOT installed a trail for us along Highway 55 between Glenwood and Winnetka last summer as part of their overlay project. And we're currently working with MnDOT on a couple other trails on Highway 55 further to the east of this diagram, basically between Highway 100 and Theodore Wirth Parkway. We actually had a meeting with some MnDOT representatives today. Yeah, we're making some good progress. I don't believe those trails are scheduled to go in until 2024, 2025, but we're in the process of planning out what those trails will look like. 2 other trails, we have the Bassett Creek Trail that's along Golden Valley Road, along Golden Valley Road east of Highway 100, but also connecting to the west over to Douglas Drive. That would be a Three Rivers Park District trail. We have Wayzata Boulevard Trail east of Highway 100 and south of 394. That would be a city trail. And then a trail that more recently has garnered some more study interest is the CP Rail Trail. Will be a Three Rivers Trail along Douglas Drive, more or less along Douglas Drive. Some of the other initiatives and projects, we have our pavement management program, which I'm sure most people are familiar with. Street reconstruction projects that we're expected to actually complete the reconstruction portion of our pavement management program here in the next couple of years. You can see we've already reconstructed 109 miles of streets since 1995 when we adopted the program, and we have about 6 miles left to go. Once we complete the reconstructions here in 2024, we're going to be shifting into what we call the infrastructure renewal program. And that program focuses more on what's underneath our streets. So we know that we have original water main and sanitary sewer and storm sewer pipes underneath the street that are going to be in need of some rehabilitation. So we're going to focus on upgrading those pipes, and then also probably mill and overlaying or surface treatments on the roadways once we complete that project. Some stormwater, water quality improvement projects, flood control projects. The Decola Ponds area is an area that we've been studying for quite a while now, and we've actually implemented some projects. So as you can see on this map, we had some significant flooding issues, basically in the area of Medicine Lake Road and just east of Winnetka, Rhode Island Avenue. So we've been working with Hennepin County, This purple line actually kind of outlines the watershed, so all the water that drains to this low point here near Medicine Lake Road and Winnetka Avenue. So we've been working with all the different agencies on this, the Basket Creek Watershed Commission. I guess I should back up a little bit. A little bit of background here is this Decola Ponds area was developed in the 60s, and there were some flooding issues in the 70s. There was actually a lawsuit in the 80s where the city was sued. And so we started studying this area in the early 2000s and putting together a plan to help reduce flood levels, not only for roadways, Winnetka and Medicine Lake Road, but also for homes that are affected in the area. A couple of the projects that we've completed, starting back in 2016, we had completed a Liberty Crossing infrastructure improvement project or flood control project. And then a couple years ago, we expanded that Decola Ponds area, Pennsylvania Woods Nature Area. And we can say now that we've completed these projects that we've reduced the flood levels on Medicine Lake Road. Back here in that photo on the left there, that's basically standing on Medicine Lake Road looking to the north at Rhode Island. So we've reduced flood levels on Medicine Lake Road for a 100-year event by 2.8 feet. It is now passable for emergency vehicles. Not only have we done that, but we've removed several homes and businesses out of the floodplain. So the next project in the Decola Ponds flood mitigation program is the C School Wildwood Park project. We're in the planning phases of that right now, where we're looking at using the Wildwood Park area near the C School to route stormwater into the park and hold it there as some flood storage during large events. Of course, that would improve water quality. And as part of that project, we're looking at the environmental factors too, so enhancing wildlife and pollinator habitats. Another similar project to the C School Wildwood is the Medley Park Water Quality and Flood Control Project. So similar, it's going to be reducing some flooding issues in the area, also improving water quality before it discharges into the lake and other nearby surface waters, flood control, as I mentioned, and the other environmental benefits that come with these types of projects. So moving into some more regional initiatives here, we have the Highway 55 bus rapid transit. So we're working with Metro Transit and MnDOT in Lincoln County and several of the other cities along this corridor, basically along Highway 55 between Minneapolis and Medina on a potential bus rapid transit route. So Metro Transit is leading the charge on the study that is taking place. MnDOT is involved on that study, as is all of the other cities. And we just are making sure that all of our concerns with the corridor are being incorporated into that study for long-term planning. And then lastly here, we have the light rail. So we know that the Blue Line light rail is no longer going through Golden Valley, but we continue to work with the Blue Line office and Robbinsdale and Three Rivers Park to be an advocate for Blue Line infrastructure. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Tim, I think, for financial. Thanks.
Thank you, RJ. Lots happening obviously in that area as well. So moving into the fourth pillar is which is financial wellness. I'm going to invite up our wonderful finance director, Sue Vernig, and she's going to talk about a number of things regarding money.
Thank you. Our top priorities, the financial priorities, are advocate for a change to the fiscal disparities formula and discuss local sales tax. Oopsie, what did I do? Okay. Fiscal disparities is a kind of a strange program. It's hard to describe, but it's an old program. And so when we have commercial and industrial properties come into Golden Valley, at least since 1971, those values, 60% were taxed at a city tax rate and 40% was then taxed at area-wide tax. And so Golden Valley, there are winners and losers of the program, and Golden Valley is considered a loser because the majority of that commercial industrial property at that 40% goes elsewhere. Because like when we have the General Mills of the world, we have many people, not just in Golden Valley that work there. We have other surrounding communities that also go there. So, and so that's fiscal disparities. Our city manager and former Larry Fonnes council member joined MLC, and they were trying to promote to change that formula. And so we do have two options that they're looking at right now to bring forth before the legislature. And so that's fiscal disparities. Okay, local sales tax. This is an option that we can use. The city of Golden Valley has asked for local sales tax. We work with her and Rust and trying to get language. We do have two bills in the House and the Senate, and we're not quite for sure. We're tweaking to make sure what our final language will be. Potentials are the remote fire station, public works facility, and the public safety building. And so we're kind of looking at that. How it works is 1/2 of 1% of sales, which every $100 you're paying 50 cents to a local tax. And that money would then come to Golden Valley to fund one of those three areas or more than one. And so first of all, the legislature has to approve it. And then we also have to have a ballot question by the voters of Golden Valley. So that's how that local sales tax works. And then I just want to point out property taxes could pay for it. That's another option. It would increase city tax portion on a median home by $199.50 for that remote fire station, just for that one. And that's the $17 million tag. So we're looking at this as being an option for us. And you will learn more in our newsletter or in the news. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue, for all you do and keeping our financial boat afloat. I don't care very much about that. Okay. Our fifth and final pillar, community affairs. Our top priority, the council's top priority, as identified in the annual goal session, is to identify ways to increase diverse participation in commissions. There are other initiatives and projects, and I'm not sure how much in depth we're going to go into on the others. We're not. That's fine. But significant effort has been put forth and significant progress has been made around our environmental initiatives. We're a step 5 green step city, one of very few in the state. We have entered into a relationship with Xcel, and we're a part of their Partners in Energy program. And as all of you, I'm sure, are aware, we've recently rolled out our organics program. And thank you, Mark, and your staff for all of the work to make that happen. So that clearly, that area, environmental, was clearly a high priority, and many things have been happening on that topic. Back to the top priority of increasing diversity on boards and commissions. So I'm going to bring up now our Deputy City Manager, Human Resources Director, Kirsten Santelises, who's going to talk a little bit more about that. So welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager Cruikshank didn't read the welcome statement earlier, and that's okay because there's a lot of things to read today. But I want to add just a few sections from that statement. So we welcome individuals to Golden Valley regardless of race, color, creed, religion, national origin, immigration status, gender identity, marital status, age, disability, economic status, sexual orientation, familial status, or cultural background. So I just wanted to read that context a little bit when we talk about diversity, because a lot of people have questions. What does it mean when we talk about diversity? And I think it's stated right there in the welcome statement what we're talking about when we talk about diversifying. There are a couple other things though, when we talk about diversifying, and specifically things that are brought up quite often are around racial diversity. And as we think about our representation from different groups of folks on our boards and commissions, what can we do to make sure that we're being as inclusive as possible? And this was actually a priority that if you recall, Kiara mentioned earlier, our Rising Tides Task Force. So this was the equity task force that put together for 2 years and did a lot of community engagement work and worked together as a diverse group of folks to come up with recommendations to the city about how we can be as inclusive as possible. And talking about boards and commissions, there's a number of different things that they recommended. And so those are on your screen here. Heavily publicized board and commission opportunities. So thinking about collaboration with communications, how do we get the word out there? Is it just by word of mouth? Do we have social media campaigns? Like, how do we make sure that people know about what we have to offer? The individual photos that you see are from previous board and commission members who were part of what they call the Why I Serve campaign. So why do you join a board or commission? What's cool about it? What do you like doing? So the Why I Serve campaign will hopefully continue, increase social media marketing. The other 2 bullet points here are really about connecting. We're really excited about having our new community connections and outreach specialists. We have a very dynamic council who's talking to people all the time and building connections within the business community, within nonprofit communities, individuals going to homes, neighborhood watch meetings. So talking to people and building connections with them and talking about how important and critical it is to have community voices at the table on our boards and commissions. And task forces, ultimately, when we have task forces. So those are some of the things that we'll be focusing on in 2022 to really look at how we're making an impact. As Ms. Zachary mentioned, doing an assessment as well. We have to, if we really want to increase diverse participation, we need to know where we're at now. So we need to take stock or an assessment of where we are so we can understand how we've made progress in those areas. So that is most of my topic for today. Fastest one, you're welcome.
Extra credit to her for being the fastest. All right. So that concludes the formal part of the presentation, and a big thanks to staff for all of that wonderful information. And all of the amazing work that you do. And Kirsten, to you, thank you for all of the work that you're doing in the very complex area of human resources and all of the other things that you do as well. So thank you. The mayor did a very thorough job of recognizing folks when he initiated the meeting, and we appreciate that. And since that time, some other folks have come in, and so I want to acknowledge them, and I may miss some too. Steve Adams, I believe, is here from the Hopkins School Board. Is that correct? Yes, Mr. Adams, welcome. Thank you. Also, Katie O'Shea Peterson. Katie. And are there other folks? Bill, and thank you for being here. I don't believe we've done this yet. I want to acknowledge the CCX staff, Dave Kaiser and company, doing the great work behind the cameras. Our communication staff, we did this setup. This may look simple and rudimentary, and it kind of is, but it's really not. Many hours have gone into trying to make this happen. We've got Rob Cuny, Randy Gates, and Cheryl Weiler also was leading the effort, so I want to acknowledge her. Speaking of communications, what you see before you are ways to interact and communicate with the city, ways for us to receive information, ways for us to push out information. So I wanted to acknowledge that. And then I also want to let you know as we move into our Q&A session that, we have, this meeting is being web broadcast. And so, there are folks who may be watching, I don't know at this point, who may have questions as well. And so we'll move, if there are questions here, we'll start in person. And, if there are questions on WebEx, we have a way to interact with them as well and get their questions and try. So we'll try to do that in an orderly way. There doesn't have to be Q&A, but if there is, we certainly offer it to everybody here and in virtual land. So with that, I will see if there are questions, and if there are, we'll try to bring up the appropriate staff person to answer. So yes, sir, go ahead. Thank you, sir. The question was about crosswalks on Glenwood. We'll bring up RJ to talk a little bit about that. Yep, come on up. Thanks.
Thank you for the question. Yes, so we've been working with Hennepin County on different, well, obviously that's our top priority for that pillar, but pedestrian safety on various county roads. Glenwood Avenue is one of them. We've identified 2 locations where crossings would probably make sense, where I think people are crossing there anyways. The county has some guidelines and standards on when they would allow a crosswalk to go in. And basically what it comes down to is, and this is actually a national standard, not just Hennepin County, but it's 20 pedestrians in the peak hour would need to cross at that location in order for it to be eligible for a crosswalk. We don't have that in too many locations in town, between, well, let's just look at Winnetka Avenue or Golden Valley Road, Glenwood Avenue. We don't have that. We don't meet that criteria. So what we've been doing is working with them on different alternatives, and just having those conversations. I think it's been pretty productive. Obviously, we haven't installed any yet, but I think we're moving in the right direction. Well, if we can't put in a full-blown crosswalk there, what can we do to improve pedestrian safety? And pedestrians are cross there anyways. Part of the reason we don't, or I shouldn't say we don't want to, but part of the reason that there is that guideline is because we call them mid-block crossings, so not at like a controlled intersection. A lot of times drivers aren't really expecting someone to be crossing there, so it creates that perception that somebody's, oh, there's a crosswalk here, I'm going to start walking out, and maybe a driver isn't expecting that. I think I heard someone mention flashing lights. Those are some improvements that we are doing on Winnetka South by Brookview. We're going to be putting in some flashing lights. And we have had conversations with the county about installing those at various locations as well. So I guess to answer your question, we are working with the county on that. They have told us no, but we're still pushing them and trying to see what we can do to improve those crossings at various locations, not just Glenwood Avenue, but like I said, Winnetka and Golden Valley Road. So those conversations are ongoing.
Other questions here in person first? Yes, ma'am, go ahead. Okay, with you, yeah. Okay. Yeah. 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 Got it. Thank you for that. So I'll repeat as much as I can of that. So is it just on the east side of 100, right? Yeah. And then as you cross the tracks going, well, south or north, it doesn't matter, but it's a confusing situation with stop signs. And the question is, can we get like a flashing or a blinking right there, a solar powered blinker? So I don't know if maybe we'll just take that question in. I don't know that we need to answer it, but we'll receive that in and we hear you. So thank you for that. Yeah. Other comments or questions? Yes, sir.
My name is David Jerry. I'm the resident of Golden Valley. I'm not a financial guy, but I keep reading in the paper about this excess of billions of dollars for the city of Minneapolis. I don't watch the financials of our city. Could you give us a more detail of how that might affect our taxes? Certainly are different, give and take back and forth between Golden Valley and of course Minneapolis. But could we perhaps have an abundance of millions, perhaps, at the end of our fiscal year?
Yeah. So thank you, David. And the question was about what's going on in Minneapolis and their surplus and what's our situation and how might that affect our taxpayers. I'm going to call up our finance director to talk a little bit about that. So let's see what comes up.
We're still closing out 2021, and so when we do that and we come up with excess, we always go back to our council and we talk about projects that we can fund, or we communicate what we see as needed as a city. As you just saw the needs of our buildings, that's going to be a priority in the next 30 years. So, but it's always communicated in our newsletter or at a council meeting. I do know we don't have excess of billions, that's for sure. But we were lucky enough when we got the ARPA funds this year, and we get to spend it all through 2024. And some of those projects that we're doing, we are improving our water infrastructure. And so by spending it on the water infrastructure, we're trying to help reduce those water rates too. So we're giving back.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
A debt reduction program because your debt load is insane for a city this size. What's happening with that?
The question is about our debt, the city's debt, and our debt reduction plan, and what's kind of the status of that. I'll call Sue back up. Thank you.
And then how does our debt load compare to comparable cities? Because it seems really high to me for that.
Sure. And then the follow-up question is how does our city's debt load maybe compare to other cities our size, comparable cities?
I actually get less calls at tax time, so this is kind of fun. Anyway, as far as our debt load, we are a little higher, but we also have a AA1 rating, which is significantly higher than some of our neighboring cities. And we always are looking when we do that positive performance at the end of the year is to reduce potential future debt, either future debt payoff some early, or we use that for not having to add to that amount. But once again, as we start looking for the future, we're looking at local sales tax for helping us with our buildings. We're looking for the bonding bill to help us out. We're always looking for different ways. And so if you find some other ways that we can look at, just give me a call.
And I don't know off the top of our heads if we could answer about comparable cities. I appreciate that question. Maybe that's something we can look into just to get a comparison, but thank you for that. Are there other questions? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. The question is about our water meter system and whether or not we've gotten some of the glitches worked out and the connections made. And I hate to do this, but I'm going to invite our finance director back up again, as well as under her umbrella.
Technology also involves Mark Nowinski's department, or not, I'm sorry, Public Works, yeah. Yes, we did have an issue with about 1% of our meters that we've gotten a hold of those people. And it was, basically the meter itself is correct. Okay, so it was just a little glitch on how it was being read. So we got were you one of them? Okay, I'll get your information and we'll get back to you because we really have to look at you specifically. So I would be glad to do that.
They did come out last August.
Okay, I'll get your information and then we'll help you out. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Other questions here in person before we move to our WebEx folks? I'm not seeing other hands being raised. Let's move to WebEx. We have our terrific city clerk online with us. She's running the WebEx behind the scenes and she's monitoring whether or not there's anyone watching and or whether or not anyone wants to ask a question. I'm getting a no. People are watching, no questions, right? Well, I feel us, Ron, yes, sir, go ahead. The question that was asked was how do we intend to salvage the police chief hiring process? Thank you for your question. We appreciate that. I will answer that because I've been a part of the process. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail, but I will say that we are moving ahead. We're going to continue on with the game plan of interviewing what is now the final candidate on Monday, and a determination will be made soon thereafter, and we'll announce that to the public. That's what I have to say for right now. Yes, sir, go ahead. Mr. Mayor, I don't know if.
What I'll just say is I'm happy to discuss that with anyone here, even though I'm on solo parent duty and I'm already late to pick up somebody. I'm happy to stick around and talk about that with people, but I don't want to occupy all of our time here. I'm not trying to hide. The short answer is no, but I'm here to talk to anybody about any issues, and seeing that there were no other questions, there's no questions online. And also out of respect for the business, because I know you guys also have other people coming in here just to not participate in this. I would just suggest that we probably say thank you and we break, and then I can come talk to you. And we just basically wrap this up. So I want to say thank you very much for everybody coming. My apologies to our 2 Hopkins School Board members. I totally overlooked them. So I'm so glad that everybody could come. And we look forward to working with you guys throughout the year. And look forward to next year's spot of which business will be supporting in Spotlight. So thanks again. Hope you guys stick around and have a great weekend.